Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tucumcari, New Mexico Area News Podcast, a roundup of what's newsworthy and what's going on in the Quay County area. Like our page on Facebook and join in on the discussion at the Tucumcari, New Mexico Area News discussion page. And now, here is your host, Gordon Runyon.
Thank you. This is Gordon Runyon, and I am your host here for the Tucumcari Local Area News for the week of Monday, January the 7th, 2019. Here we are. Hope your new year went all right. Looking ahead to the long-range forecast, man, we made it through a rough week. Looks like it's going to be a lot better this coming week. Highs in the 40s to mid-50s. The warmest day so far is looking like Thursday, and the coolest days will be Friday and Sunday with highs of 46. Our verse of the day is Mark chapter 8, verse 36. The Lord Jesus is speaking and says, "For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul?" The long-range forecast, also known as Your Guess is as Good as Theirs, and the verse of the day, brought to you by your friends and neighbors at Emmanuel Baptist Church. Come visit us sometime. 11 a.m. on Sunday morning is our main service. If you're interested in an adult Sunday school class, we've got that going at 9:45 Sunday morning. Come join us. Come as you are. Just cover up your naughty bits. You don't have to wear Sunday go-to-meeting clothes. We're in jeans and t-shirts a lot of the time, so just come on. 11 a.m. on Sunday, we'd be glad to have you. It was another pretty slow news week in Tucumcari and Quay County, and that's a good thing. You don't want things just blowing up all the time. About the only news we got was the Gaming Commission Board saying that they would indeed award a new racino. They're committed to that, and they also said they're not going to actually award the new license until after the current lawsuit is settled. And the way the American civil justice system works, don't hold your breath. But I did want to point you to something. On the 29th of December, the Santa Fe New Mexican has an interesting article that you need to read. You can find it online. It's called santafenewmexican.com. That's the address, santafenewmexican.com. And the article is Records, Santa Fe officials discussed ammunition tax. Santa Fe officials discussed ammunition tax. Now, in this article, what it points out is that after a particular school shooting, Albuquerque city officials discussed what they could do in terms of what they are calling common sense gun control laws. What can we do to lessen the chance of there being this kind of thing? Now, the issue is that there is a law on the books in the state of New Mexico that says that local governments and municipalities are not allowed to have more restrictive gun control than the state of New Mexico itself has. They can petition the government and try to get more restrictive gun control, but they can't just do it themselves. And so the Albuquerque city government actually was talking around about what do we need to do, and maybe we should challenge that law or find a way around it. And what they eventually decided to do, especially now that we've got an incoming Democratic governor, the Albuquerque City Council passed a resolution that they passed on to the state legislature. And in that resolution, the Albuquerque City Council recommended 4 gun control measures. here are the 4 gun control measures in this resolution. The first one is basically what are called red flag laws. That is, under a law like this, the government has the right to come take guns from you if they believe that you might commit some kind of crime with them. And where these laws are being implemented in Florida, for instance, this means that somebody can call the authorities on you. Like if you've got a cousin who doesn't like you or somebody's angry with you, they can call the authorities and say they believe you're mentally unstable and you own a gun, and they can come take them. President Trump has actually expressed some affinity with this view. Famously, he said he was ready to grab the guns first and then worry about due process later. So the city council recommends red flag laws. They also recommend preventing some domestic violence offenders from owning guns. I'm not sure how they would go about that, but that's another issue. They also have a recommendation that owners of firearms, adult owners of firearms, be liable for accidents involving minors if it's believed that the owners were not careful enough storing their weapons. And the last one was what amounts to universal gun sales background checks. And this would mean at a gun show or even you're just selling your gun to your next door neighbor or somebody from your church or your gun club or something like that. You're not allowed to sell that gun without getting a background check. Now, of course, one thing that we need to note is that if all 4 of those things had been in place when the shooting took place that prompted all of this, if all 4 of those measures had been in place, they would not have prevented what happened. And that is generally the way it is with all gun control laws. So that is the resolution, and it's interesting to see in the Santa Fe, New Mexican, that state officials and higher-ups, especially in the Democratic Party, have really just kind of been looking for an opportunity to do gun control in New Mexico. They were not able to do it while Governor Martinez was in there because they knew she would veto whatever they did. But now they're getting their gal in, and she wants gun control. She's apparently expressed that she favors all 4 of these ideas and would sign them into law. And they've just been waiting for their opportunity. And waiting for something like a shooting to happen that they can capitalize on and use it as political momentum. Another thing that they have considered, as in the title of the article, they've considered a tax on ammunition. Even though places that have tried this and studies that have been done have shown that this does not do anything to restrict ammunition, especially in the hands of criminals. One Libertarian Party official in the state pointed out that with all the draconian drug laws that we have as part of the U.S. war on drugs, still bales and bales of drugs are shipped into the United States. And his point was, how difficult do we really think it would be for those who are smuggling these things in to just throw a few boxes of ammunition on top of those bales of drugs? This is not going to keep bad guys from getting ammunition, and everybody knows that. Now, the biblical issue here, and I don't have time to read all of these passages to you, but I would point you to 2 chapters in the Bible. They're short chapters, they're interesting, they're easy to read. They're in the book of Exodus. Look at chapters 21 and 22. And what you'll find in those places is that the Bible allows self-defense. That's right, the Bible allows self-defense. Sometimes you'll run into Christian people who propose that what the Bible teaches is a radical kind of pacifism, which really has more to do with Buddhism or something like that than it does with any kind of biblical religion. But Jesus did not teach pacifism. Jesus is the author of the Old Testament law. He affirmed it. He said that those who taught every jot and tittle and the least of these commandments would be great in the kingdom. And those who violated a jot or a tittle or the least of these commandments would be called least. Jesus, as Son of God, second person of the Trinity, is the author of the Scripture and the author of the law of God. And that law, making that defending yourself, even to the point of killing the person who attacked you, is legal. Defending your home when it's broken into in the middle of the night is legal. There is no penalty attached. If a thief breaks into, it says in the law of God there that if a thief breaks in and is killed in the process of breaking in, there is no guilt assigned to the homeowner who killed him. And so that's just one place. Exodus chapter 21 and 22, you can find these concepts clearly spelled out. That self-defense, defending yourself, defending your family is allowed. And those are explicit places in the law, but frankly, you read through the Old Testament, you're going to find out that God really doesn't have much of a problem with violence if it's directed in a just manner, if it's directed righteously. And so you don't need to buy into this stuff from supposedly Christian pacifists who would say, there's no reason you would need to defend yourself, or it's better to die as a martyr or something like that. So I would highly recommend to you to take a look at those two chapters at least in the Old Testament, Exodus 21 and 22. And like I say, you'll find there that citizens are allowed to defend themselves. I was speaking with a coworker who was raised, he spent a lot of time as a young boy before he came over to the United States. He and his family, they were in Cuba and they immigrated to the United States. Somehow they got away from communist Castro's government, and he was just talking about what it was like and how these things happened and how they occurred. And one of the things he pointed out was that when Castro was leading the revolution against the current government, that one of the things Castro did is he actually gave guns to people to make them soldiers in his revolution. But then once he was in power, he went back to those same people and took all the guns back and confiscated the other guns that they had. And part of that was just saying, hey, the revolution's over. We are now a civilized society, and there's no reason for any of you to own guns because the military and the police own guns, and if you need to be protected, they will do it for you. And as soon as the population was disarmed, the population was, for all practical purposes, enslaved. And in fact, this man's older brother spent years and years in prison because he dared to speak up against communism and what was going on there. So the first step in enslaving the people was to disarm the people. And this is not a unique pattern. This is the way communism and dictators have always operated. And I'm just telling you that in the state of New Mexico, this is not an East Coast problem. It's not a California nut job problem. It's an American problem. And here in the United States and here in New Mexico, there are government officials who are chomping at the bit to chip away at your right to defend yourself. And they'll say the whole time, that's not what we're after. We're not after your guns. You can keep your guns, but we're going to tax your ammunition. We'll tax this. We'll make this regulation and that one. We'll find ways of keeping guns out of your hands. And the whole time they'll be saying, this is just common sense. Our forefathers did not believe that. And the people who founded the United States government did not have that attitude at all. And they didn't believe that your guns were just for target practice. They didn't even believe that your guns were just for home defense or for hunting. They believed that your guns were for the preservation of liberty against tyrants who believed they had some right to take it from you. The American War of Independence would not have been successful without private gun ownership. And those who have dastardly designs, they want to take your guns. And it's here already. This is coming. And you need to decide how you're going to respond to it. You need to decide, if you're a Christian person, you need to decide what is the biblical way to respond. That's all I have for you this week. This has been Gordon Runyon with the Tucumcari area local news. Please join us next week. Make sure to look us up on Facebook. Until next time, God bless you all, and let's stay free.
We hope this episode of the Tucumcari, New Mexico area news has been a blessing to you. Remember to like our page on Facebook to stay current on what's happening in Quay County. We are honored to be a part of the Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network. Either Christ is Lord of all, or He's not Lord at all.